previously on part 3 of our North Central Arizona special. After checking out the incredible view from the end of the world above Sedona, I continued northeast through Coconino National Forest. I checked out the historic Furno cabin before heading east to my next campsite at Fry Lake. This open area was scenic, with views of the San Francisco Peaks and the West Fork of Oak Creek. After a relaxing evening at camp, I continued east the next morning and dropped into Oak Creek Canyon. I followed Highway 89A for half a mile and was soon back on dirt. The trail got rough through Fry Canyon and I eventually emerged alongside I-17. I filled up the tank and tires one last time and continued south briefly to Munns Park. Today, I continue with days 4 and 5 of my trip, heading east and south past Mormon Lake to the scenic area around Apache Maid Mountain, where I would spend the last night of my trip and check out one more historic structure. I traveled through Munns Park and returned to dirt on the outskirts of town. The road continued east and I stayed aired up for now. My air compressor and battery box were still temporarily out of service, but I still had one extra fuse if I absolutely needed it. Forest Road 240 remained smooth and easy going. It was about 12 miles from here to Mormon Lake. The road passed along the edge of Kasner Park and then made a sharp left and climbed. Up to this point, the drive had been busy, with lots of people camped out and vehicles moving through the area. The trail continued to curve through the forest. The surface remained easy, but the trail did have a few short rocky sections and plenty of washboards. I know that I love talking about washboards, but they can be really annoying at times. From here, the road began a long uphill section. The forest was really thick in this area, and I eventually crested the hill, topping out just over 7,500 feet. This was the highest elevation of my entire trip. Almost immediately, the road soon dipped, dropping back downhill. 12 miles from Munns Park, the trees thinned and I arrived at a paved road on the edge of Mormon Lake. I continued north to a scenic overlook. Mormon Lake is a 12 square mile natural basin surrounded by low hills. The lake bed was full of yellow and green grass, but there was one important thing missing: any sign of water. Mormon Lake has the unique distinction of being Arizona's largest natural lake, sometimes. As far as I could see, this seasonal lake didn't feature any water. It appeared to be more marshland than anything else. Named for Mormon settlers who arrived in this area in 1878 and established a dairy, the lake today is really just a scenic stop for most. Some kind of animals, either elk or deer, were out grazing near the middle. I enjoyed the windy viewpoint and grabbed a quick snack before continuing south. Now on my final pavement stretch, this road would take me about 15 miles south to Stoneman Lake. Along the way, I passed by the village of Mormon Lake, located on the shores and in the lake bed itself. With its own stores, lodge, airstrip, and RV park, this seemed to be a hive of activity. I continued south, following Lake Mary Road as it climbed through the forest. Just after 3 o'clock, I was pulling off the paved road at Stoneman Lake Road. This would be my final dirt stretch as I drove to the lake and explored the area around Apache Maid Mountain for the rest of today and first half of tomorrow. Forest Road 213 headed west and remained very wide and smooth. The road was incredibly busy, with everything from minivans being towed out to fellow rooftop tent enthusiasts. I was able to make good time as the road gently climbed and twisted through Coconino. "6 miles from the paved road, I pulled in at the Stoneman Lake overlook. This lake is much smaller than Mormon Lake, but did appear to at least have a little bit of water. It didn't seem very deep, and the surface was predominantly marshland. Located in a small basin, it is thought that the lake formed in the remains of a volcanic crater or sinkhole. It is very scenic, and numerous cabins line the northern and eastern shoreline. There were also a few picnic tables and a bathroom, although the latter was currently closed. From the lake, I continued on the forest road as it headed west and soon descended. The road turned south and eventually came across an intersection with the road out to I-17. I pushed further south towards Apache Maid Mountain, which soon came into view. Apache Maid is quite literally a bump on the map. The former volcanic vent, one of several in the Mormon volcanic field, rises up out of the otherwise flat terrain surrounding it. The trail continued south, getting narrower in places. The surface was mostly smooth, with a few areas of embedded rocks. The road came to a nice shady spot, and I was soon crossing the small bridge over Foster Canyon. After traveling through some grasslands, I stayed right to follow along the northern side of Apache Maid. The road was incredibly scenic as it headed west. I passed another narrow bridge and a few nice camping spots. This was the area I was hoping to camp at, but I continued on briefly to see what was further down the trail. Slowly but surely, the road began to drop in elevation and the conditions deteriorated. The road split and things were narrow as the rocky trail curved around Apache Maid. It was slower going, but really beautiful. The trail split again and turned to 2-track on the west side of the mountain. I parked and surveyed the area. I found some kind of stream gauge along one of the spurs, as well as some more great views. From here, the red rocks of Sedona and the scenic canyons I had seen just a couple days ago were visible once more to the west. It certainly felt more remote on this side of Apache Maid. The roads were less traveled and it wasn't nearly as busy as Stoneman Lake. The vegetation also thinned out for the most part. The pine forest gave way to juniper bushes and grassland. I returned to the Jeep. It was now around 4:30. While this was a gorgeous area, I was hoping to find a camp with a little more cover. And I had passed one on the way in that would work perfectly. I retraced my way back out through the scenic grasslands. The trail got progressively easier as it returned to well-traveled roads. Just a mile from my last stop, I pulled off the main road and found camp. Located in a patch of trees and on a slight rise, I had an excellent view of the forest just north of me. This area was perfect for my last night and was possibly even the best of the trip. I enjoyed the view for a minute before getting camp set up. Shortly after 5, I got to work. I leveled the Jeep and got the tent opened up one more time. Everything was soon set up and I sat down to enjoy the first beer of the evening. Located at 6,300 feet, the weather was cool with a light breeze. Some early season monsoon clouds were building up on the horizon, but they were no factor. The trees around camp provided the perfect amount of cover, and Apache Maid Mountain rose up just to the south. It really was a perfect evening. Aside from the occasional traffic on the nearby road, things were exceptionally quiet. It was nice relaxing and enjoying some more downtime around camp. After the sun sunk a little further in the sky, it was time for dinner. Tonight would be a repeat meal. The chicken quesadilla from night 1 of the trip was just too good not to do again. I repeated the process, first warming up the tortilla and then packing it with chicken and cheese. Things came together real quick and I was soon sitting down to eat this deliciousness. I watched as the last light of the day hit the trees. Just before 8 o'clock, the sun had finally set. Despite being the last night of the trip, I wasn't really that tired. I enjoyed a late evening at camp with a little more whiskey and a whole lot of stars. It was about 10 when I got up in the tent and finally hit the hay. The following morning, I was up just before 8. The night had been fantastic, and I ended up sleeping really hard. I enjoyed the view from the tent for a while. The San Francisco peaks were just visible in the distance. After mustering up the motivation to get out of the tent, I soon set to work on breakfast. Today would be mopping up what was left in the cooler. I passed on the Spam and got an over-easy egg and tortilla cooked. After a cup of coffee, I spent the next hour getting things cleaned up. I got the dishes done and worked on packing up the tent and back of the Jeep. I wasn't in a big rush today, since I only had a little more mileage to cover before getting on the highway home. Alright, so day number 5 now. We are on the last day of our trip. It's unbelievable that it's already almost over. Had a good night last night, slept really good. Weather was nice, I'd say low 50s, upper 40s maybe. So there's one more historic structure I want to check out here in the Apache Maid area before heading back home. So we've got a little bit more trail to get there, and then from there we'll be retracing the few miles back to pavement and begin on the drive home. The trip is winding down, but we do have a little bit more time up here to enjoy and explore, and it should be pretty neat. I got back on the trail and headed east. My last stop was just a ways down the trail, near the base of Apache Maid. I continued south onto Forest Road 229, and things remained mostly easygoing. I passed some cattle and twisted through some more forest. After nearly missing my turnoff, I weaved along my final side trip. The road remains rutted out as it follows Rocky Gulch. At the end of the road, I arrived at my destination, a rather large homestead at the base of Apache Maid Mountain. This is an area known colloquially as T-Bar Ranch. The multi-room structure that remains is impressive. I walked through the numerous rooms inside. The westernmost room featured floor tiles and a fireplace, with mementos stacked on top of the mantel. There were also some old pictures pinned to the wall. From the pictures, it seemed like this room was the original structure built on site. Substantial additions were eventually completed to further expand the homestead. The building contained a slightly more modern kitchen, complete with sink, cabinets, and concrete flooring. Some kind of pantry and collapsed root cellar remained closest to the hill. The back half of the cabin featured numerous additional rooms. With what appeared to be a hallway, there were 3 small rooms with wood flooring. A larger master suite sat at the end of the building. It was clear that this was built in many parts. A nice porch wraps around most of the structure. The side porch is in decent shape with some wood decking, but the front has seen better days. It's interesting to see the materials that were used to construct some of the building. Unfortunately, not much is known about the history behind this place. The original structure appears to be quite old, possibly built in the late 1800s. The rest of the additions are more modern and could date from the early to mid 1900s. The Babbitts, famous Arizona cattle ranchers, built and operated a ranch out of a nearby building, but it is unclear if T-Bar was associated with it. Either way, it was a neat place, and the running cattle outside made it easy to imagine what life was like here back in the day. The view out the front door was downright stunning. A meadow juts up to the base of Apache Maid Mountain. From here, the lookout tower was visible at the top. The tower and summit of the mountain is accessible via a 2.5-mile trail that sharply climbs to the top. Depending on the time of year, the road can be gated near the summit and require a short hike. I have actually been up there a couple of times, and the view is certainly worth it if you've never been. Since I had been up Apache Maid as recently as October, I figured this spot at the ranch was the perfect turnaround. From here, I retraced my path back out to the main road. I continued north 4 miles back to Stoneman Lake Road. The drive was easy, and I tried to savor every remaining minute of dirt. I eventually turned left, and the dirt road gave way to pavement. I followed the road 8 miles west as it dropped towards I-17 and the road home. This trip had been phenomenal. The 250 miles from Baghdad to Apache Maid had featured a little bit of everything. From the grass-covered mesas of the Santa Marias and the lush Verde Valley, to the open expanses and scenic canyons of the Colorado Plateau, the incredible scenery on this trip was constantly changing. With stops at an abandoned mine, scenic cabin, and historic homestead, there had been no shortage of places to explore either. It was great to be able to cover some new trails, and the combination of great campsites and perfect weather throughout my 5 days made it that much more enjoyable. It's been a while since I did a proper trip through central and northern Arizona, and I feel like this adventure did a great job of covering the wide variety this area offers. I really do appreciate you watching this special and subscribing if you'd like to see more like it. To learn more about the trails featured on this trip, you can head over to our website for more info. As always, we'll be back with more trips, historic spots, and vehicle projects in the future. And we'll see you on the next one.
Good morning. So day 5, good morning. Test. Pretty fun 5-day trip planned for this as I head east to ultimately camp series as I head east all the way over to the... So I know with quarantine and everything, toilet paper has been a little bit in short supply, but I want to show you something I found just up here. There's no need to worry because it literally grows on trees. I didn't put that there, by the way. There's probably a big shortage because everyone keeps leaving it out here in the middle of nowhere. Kind of a bummer, but I guess if you need some really bad, there it is. But I would encourage you, if you have the means, you're not too grossed out by it, maybe spend a few minutes trying to pick up trash around camp. I try to at every campsite I go to, not to it's not to brag or anything. I just want to want to do my part to try and make it a little bit better for the next person that comes by. So if you can do the same, great. If not, then just don't leave it out here. Simple as that.